broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Houston, Texas. It's time for Houston Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hello, Houston. Trisha Stetzel here, bringing you another episode of Houston Business Radio. I'm super excited about introducing you to my lovely guest today, Dr. Noa Gafni, professor of entrepreneurship at New York University, strategist, speaker, and global thinker focused on helping leaders navigate complexity and disruption. Noa has spent 2 decades rethinking how organizations understand competitive advantage in a world shaped by what she calls the new 5 forces: technology, geopolitics, society, environment, and economy. Guess what? We're going to talk more about that. A former fellow at the World Economic Forum and Cambridge University, Noa has worked across 5 continents and brings a global perspective to entrepreneurship, leadership, and the future of business. Dr. Gafni, welcome to the show.
Trisha, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on today, and I can't wait to pick your brain. But before we get there, tell us a little bit more about who you are or what you would like for us to know about you.
Thank you so much. So I am a professor and an entrepreneur. I've lived and worked globally. So I've lived in 6 countries across 5 continents and had the privilege and the pleasure of getting to know different places, different cultures, and really bring that back to where I'm from, which is the New York area. I've been back in New York for 6 years now, and now leading a new entrepreneurship program at NYU, New York University. And what's so great about it is it really does bridge the local and the global. I'm going to be launching a new master's degree with students from 15 countries around the world, and they're coming to the US to learn from our innovation ecosystem. So it really does feel like a full circle moment.
Wow, that is amazing. I'd love to, from your perspective, hear how your global travel or the work that you've done globally has really led to the work that you're doing now at the university.
Excellent. So what a great question. I think what is exciting to me about bringing this all together is the ability to see different perspectives. And one of the things that I've been noticing, as you know, is what I see as the new 5 forces. I've noticed that we're really looking at the business world from an outdated lens, and that around the world, entrepreneurs, CEOs, even heads of state are really struggling. One of the people I've interviewed over the past decade, and I've interviewed Nobel Peace Prize winners, I've interviewed Fortune 500 CEOs, I've interviewed activists, and it's been a real privilege to be able to sit across the table from so many of these individuals. They keep saying the same thing over and over again, which is we're really in the Wild West. We're building for a world that we don't know what's coming. And so when I think about launching a business program today, a lot of the frameworks that we've been teaching in our MBA programs were created in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, and that was a completely different world. So we really need new frameworks and new thinking for this global, complex, climate change focused, there's so much happening, AI-driven world, right? So we know that there's a lot happening and that there has been a lot changing over the past 40, 50 years, and we need to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now it's time to pick your brain. I want to dive into the new 5 forces that are impacting business. Tell me a little more.
So I talk about the new 5 forces as technology, geopolitics, society, environment, and economy. And the genesis of this framework was there were the original 5 forces, which came out in the 1970s. And the first thing any MBA student learns are the 5 forces by Michael Porter. It talks about how companies compete with each other in an industry. So it's all about your competition, your suppliers, your buyers, and how they interact. And the reality is most companies that have been blindsided by the past decade or so, they haven't been blindsided by a competitor, right? They've been blindsided by forces completely out of their control. So we think about the financial crisis in 2008. Lehman Brothers didn't go under because Goldman Sachs was more competitive, the whole industry almost went under because of these macroeconomic forces. And so we're really looking at what's disrupting businesses today. And we can look at each of the 5 forces separately, but when we look at them together, that's when the magic happens. And that's when the fear happens for many established CEOs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So of the 5 that you just spoke about, which one do you think leaders are underestimating most right now?
So technology and geopolitics are top of mind for most Fortune 500 CEOs, and to a lesser extent, I would say business owners across the board are understanding all of these 5 forces and how they impact them. The one that I think we're underestimating the most is society. There are major societal shifts happening today in terms of demographic changes, culture wars, political polarization, and everybody's getting caught in the crossfire, right? On the one hand, you have younger generations expecting CEOs to stand up and say what's right. On the other hand, we live in a very polarized society and not everyone's going to agree with what you have to say. So it's a pretty fraught space. And I would say across the board, the best way to handle things is by building trust. And trust is the new social currency.
Ooh, I like that. Trust is the new social currency. So you mentioned technology and then you talked about society. How do we bring technology and people together without losing one or the other?
What a great question. So in my report that recently came out, I talk about a digital bank out of Brazil called Nubank. And Nubank is a digital first bank. And what they did is in Brazil, there are a lot of people in the population that are part of the informal economy. So it was really hard for them to get a traditional bank account. So what Nubank did is it reached out to new audiences. It was working with young people. It was working with people in the informal economy. It gave them not only access to a bank account, but also to a new way of learning about financial education. So these were people who were having bank accounts for the first time. They were learning about how to save money and how to engage with money in a new way. And they were using social media in a really smart way. They knew their audience and they were they had customer support on WhatsApp and they had TikTok and Instagram be their primary channels. And what's interesting is now they're going to launch in the US. And to plan their launch, they hired the former global head of creators at TikTok. So that's how they're going to be launching in the US. And I think that says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that is so interesting. And I know I'll bet there are a lot of entrepreneurs listening today or even business leaders that know technology is moving so fast right now. So how do we take, I'm just going to call it disruption because there's always something different happening all the time, right? So how do we take that disruption that's happening and turn it into something like a strategic advantage instead of just simply reacting to it?
Absolutely. That's the trick, right? That's why these new 5 forces exist as a framework. It's not just looking at the risks, it's looking at the opportunities. I think Gen Z does this really well. I look at Gen Z entrepreneurs and I work with Gen Z entrepreneurs, and they leverage technology in really smart ways. So I see Gen Z building differently in 3 key ways. And the first one is they really leverage social media in a smart way. They'll actually build their audience before they'll build a product. And the second thing they do is they really use AI for so much more than content creation. I feel like my generation, there's a lot of automated LinkedIn content. And for Gen Z, they're using Claude as a co-founder. They're doing legal documents on Claude. They're doing their back-end thinking. It's really a strategic partner, and they're not outsourcing their thinking. They're actually leveraging it as a co-founder in some way, right, with a back and forth relationship. And the third thing they're doing is I think because there's so much disruption, there's a return to scrappy problem solving. And I think that's exactly what we need. And that's what small business owners do. That's what entrepreneurs do, right? It's really about how do we look at the problems the world is facing and come up with some scrappy solutions and build from there.
Okay, so I know the X-Geners out there that are listening are saying, I could do some scrappy decision making. However, the technology scares the heck out of me in some cases. How do some of our older generation entrepreneurs settle into this new technology age that we're in?
So I think what's exciting is it's a little bit more user-friendly than it used to be, right? You can vibe code an app, and whether you know it's called vibe coding or not, the idea that you don't need a technical co-founder, you can build a website on your own in a matter of hours. These are things that are really transformative. When I started my first business 20 years ago, I had to find an accountant and a web designer, everybody through word of mouth, right? There was no infrastructure for that. And then I started my second business in 2014, and there were all of these online marketplaces, and there was WeWork, and there was Fiverr, and it was just so much easier. And now it's just a complete game changer because you can really get a business off the ground in a matter of hours. You can have your initial product, your initial website, right? And so that's pretty exciting. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? You can, and you don't need a big team either. And I think those are the things that really excite me.
Oh, that's amazing. So I'm thinking about what you said around building their audience first. And that just seems so smart to me. If you go build your audience, then you know what it is they're looking for instead of trying to build a product and sell it to people who you don't know yet. Tell me more about your entrepreneur experience and how that's really played into the work that you're doing now.
So I'm excited to be teaching in this era because in the age of AI, we really do need to talk to people more than ever. So it's easier to build a product than ever, right? We were just talking about that. But are you solving a problem? And you don't know that until you talk to people. And you don't know that until you test out that product with real people and adapt it to how they're using it. I think so many entrepreneurs so many people think entrepreneurship is this: you sit alone in a room, you sit in a garage, you do something really complicated, and then the world just picks it up, right? And so much of entrepreneurship is not that. Most entrepreneurship is not that. Any small business owner, any small entrepreneur, any emerging entrepreneur, any scale up today, they know that it's all about the people. And I think that's what's so smart about these Gen Zers leveraging social media and building their audiences, because they're really listening to people. And ultimately, as the technology gets less and less complicated to develop, the people who are going to win are the ones that really understand what people need and want.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I know that there are quite a few people who already want to connect with you or know more about the work that you're doing. So where's the best place for them to find you, Dr. Gafni?
I am on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter there, and I'm pretty active and would love to connect with anybody listening.
That's fantastic. Okay, so you'll find her, Noagafni, on LinkedIn. That's how I found her. So you guys go find her. You can find her through me and my connection to her. All right, I want to circle back to, you mentioned it briefly, this report that you just recently released. Tell me more about it.
So the new 5 forces, it's something that I've been working on for some time. I've been looking at them all individually, but what I think is really unique about this point in time is that all 5 forces are converging. The world is so complicated, and I don't see it getting less complicated. And so I talk not only about the 5 forces individually, but what it means when they come together, and what business leaders can do to navigate them. Ultimately, I think it's a complicated world, and I use the analogy of sailing. And I say, here's to sailing in the storm, because we just need to learn to navigate this very complex world with grace and with strategic thinking, and also with positivity, because those are the things that we really need in order to move forward. And so we can look at the world as it is and say that it's all doom and gloom, or we can look at the world as it is and say, here are some really interesting opportunities. And I hope we do the latter.
I hope so too. They are opportunities, not challenges, right? Maybe there's some challenges underneath there. Where can folks find the report that you've put out there? Best place.
Best place is on the NYU website, but second best place is on LinkedIn. I have it linked on my profile, so feel free to reach out to me there. It's very much featured there. It's been featured in the Financial Times, Chief Executive Magazine, and some others as well. So hopefully it'll be easy to find.
Fantastic. And if not, they can reach out to me and I'll point them in the right direction. And of course, you guys, if you're sitting in front of your computer, I will have a link inside of the show notes. You can just point and click and get directly to that amazing work that Dr. Gafni has done. All right, I want to circle back around to something that you said, and we were talking about opportunities versus challenges, and you didn't say the word joy, but that's what came to mind. So how do we continue navigating all of this uncertainty and shift and change in the world while still maintaining the joy that we have for our businesses or for the businesses that we're supporting?
I personally have been thinking a lot about fun impact and how we can bring the joy back into our work. So took a few weeks out in December to spend time with my husband and my kids, and was really reflecting on the past year. And of course, the world is complicated. Things are so challenging. There are so many crises happening in the world, and people who are in real danger. And so I don't want to make light of that. At the same time, I believe that my work has purpose and that my work has meaning, and that if I can find the joy in doing the work, then that will continue to sustain me. In the impact space, which is where I've spent a lot of my time, so many people get burnt out, right? And Trisha, with your background and a life of service across the board, it can be really tricky, right, to maintain that energy. And so I think having joyful impact and really committing to the joy in our work is the most important thing we can do, because otherwise we get burnt out and then we're not able to commit in the same way.
Mm-hmm. How important was it for you to take that time away? And what would you suggest to those who haven't stepped away from their work in a very long time?
I think it's essential. And I felt so guilty. Who am I to take time out when the world is on fire? And the truth is, we all need to take a step back. We all need to reflect. We need that time to recharge. And we need that time to be around the people that are with us throughout, right? It's not just about being with colleagues. It's about being with family and friends, and giving energy to those who give us energy as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's talk about that circle. I've always loved this saying, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So how important is it to have the right people in the room supporting you?
I think it's important at work. It's important at home. It's important in our communities. If I think about it, even just on the work front, when I'm surrounded by smart people who push my thinking, I feel so much more engaged in the work that I'm doing. I feel like my output is so much better, and I feel happier at work, frankly. I think there's something to be said for being challenged in a good way, right? We don't want to feel out of our depth, but at the same time, colleagues that are so smart, and I feel so privileged at NYU that I'm surrounded by such smart, caring, passionate people who really believe in the future of education. These people are pushing my thinking, and I think they're making my work better too.
Always. Because we want to hang around with people who are bigger, better, faster, stronger than we are, so that we can become the average of those people in the room. What about for those who are listening today that have people in their room that maybe they let in early on, and they know that they need to get rid of them because they're not necessarily the right people? What would you say to them about extracting that person or people from your room that really aren't contributing to your joy or your success?
I think you're saying it so politely, right? If somebody's not contributing to your joy or your success, they're detracting from it. And I think we have to be really honest about who is taking energy away from our joy and our impact. And of course, we all have give and take relationships, right? I think sometimes my family is a source of my strength. Sometimes they lean on me, and that happens, right? Those are the cycles of life. And I think that's one thing. But to say somebody is just, doesn't have my best interest at heart. Somebody is constantly questioning my decisions in a way that is not healthy or helpful. those are the things that I think we really have to evaluate, because our time is so finite and so precious, and who we let in matters.
Absolutely. What do you have to say on the topic of no, N-O, or learning to say no to certain things?
I think as women, we find it so hard, right?
Yes, so hard.
We're taught that it's not the right thing to say, and many of us have caregiving responsibilities and work and life, and that makes it really hard. And so it's something I'm learning to be better at as well, right? And sometimes that means that I'm letting go of certain aspects of my life temporarily, and that is so hard to do. I don't have the big friend group I used to have, but I have a really solid family life. And so I think it's, there are phases for everything, and it's hard to say no, but I think my energy depends on it, and energy is everything.
Mm-hmm. And we just continue to practice. Practice, practice, practice. And sometimes we still say yes to things that maybe we shouldn't have, and we learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of it. So thinking about all of the things, because as women, we do often take on a lot of responsibility, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. For those women who are listening today, who are really feeling the pressure and overwhelm of trying to do all of the things, what would you say to her?
I feel you.
Mm.
I've been there. I'm there too. We're all, so many of us are there. Trisha, I'm sure you're there too, in so many ways, right? I wish we talked about the trade-offs more. I really do. And I wish we talked about the systems we have in place, and that, of course, there's no one system. I have friends that do things in a certain way. I have friends that do things in the complete opposite way. And I think there's a lot of judgment, and social media is making things worse. And that's, we can't listen to the noise. We just have to listen to ourselves and our communities, and really be there for each other. I think this whole, trad wife versus girl boss on social media is so harmful. It's so harmful. Why do we need to call ourselves certain things, right? You can be one way in one context, you can be a different way in a different context, or be neither. And I think that's fine too.
I love that so much. Sometimes we just have to give ourselves grace and say it's okay to not be everything to everyone all the time. Actually, it's good for you to not be. It's good for you to not be. All right, I want to circle back around to the new 5 forces. We touched on technology. We've talked about society. We didn't dig into the other 3 much, but in geopolitics, environment, and economy, what would you add about those 3 that we didn't talk about today that might be important for people to hear?
So I think a great example of this is Shein, the Chinese fast fashion brand. And, all the Gen Zers listening out there know exactly what it is. But for those who don't, because I didn't know them until recently, they are really, really cheap clothing coming straight from China. And last summer, they were sending 900,000 airmail packages a day to the US. They use AI to come up with all of these micro trends, and most of their products are under $10. So you can imagine in this economy, it was flying off the shelves. But they built their business model on, dirty materials, environmentally unsustainable practices. And so they really struggled actually with the Iran war. So when oil prices went up, they were in real trouble, because all of the plasticky materials that they use, like acrylic, are actually oil-based. And so when petroleum prices went up, they were really struggling to maintain their margins. The other thing that, of course, went up were fuel prices, right? And so when they were shipping all of these packages to the US via airmail, they got really caught out. And so what's interesting is that they were really struggling. And since then, in the past few months, they've decided to buy one of the most sustainable fashion brands out there called Everlane. So you can see that all of these 3 intersect, and that when we don't practice good business, it always comes back in the end, right? Because things change, and it's no surprise that Shein's buying Everlane because, it makes so much sense, right?
Yeah, it's almost like that. Who's in your room?
Almost.
Almost.
Exactly. Who's in your room and what are you practicing, right? What are the business practices and the personal practices that you have? Because I think going back to society, when you're not living your values as a person or as a corporation, it catches up to you.
It always does. Oh my goodness, our time has gone by so fast. This has been such a great conversation. I have one last question for you. What is next for Noa?
I'm so excited to be launching this new master's program in the fall at NYU. It's a master's of entrepreneurship. It's only 9 months. And continuing to work on the new 5 forces and always looking for ideas, feedback, examples, especially from people who are doing the work on the ground. And so would love to hear from your audience, from you all, to really understand how are these forces impacting your lives and your work.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time. This has been such a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much, Trisha. This has been a joy.
All right, you guys, Dr. Noa Gafni, you can find her on LinkedIn, Noagafni, or you can find my profile and connect to her through me. And again, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, that's all I've got for you today. If you found value in this conversation that Noa and I had, please share it with a fellow entrepreneur, a veteran, or a Houston leader ready to grow. And of course, be sure to follow, rate, and review the show. It helps us reach more bold business minds just like yours. And your business, your leadership, and your legacy are built one intentional step at a time. So stay inspired, stay focused, and keep building the business and the life you deserve.